May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, throwing in our 2 cents worth in preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest, one Dot Kostriken. I should have gotten her to say her name because I don't know if I haven't heard it in a long time. Anyway, Dot and I have known each other since 1967 when Tassajara first opened. We were open first for guests and outsiders, I think on May 1st, 1967. And, we'd only had it since at the very end of December. And we ran a guest season then. I'm not sure it started on May 1st. That's what I remember. We might have started a little earlier because we had to quit, like the last week of June or maybe just a few days before July. I can't remember exactly because and maybe we did run it all the way through June, May and June, and then quit it because I think the opening ceremony was July 4th. There were 2 ceremonies there, right around there. There was the installation of Richard Baker. It was his ordination of Richard Baker as a Zen priest, which is the term we used, because we weren't really monks, but we weren't really priests either. So we've never known what to say, and Suzuki Roshi felt the same. When nobody ever was satisfied with these terms. And he gave a talk, and about maybe when they first moved into the building on Page Street in 1969 on November 19th maybe, that we're neither monk nor lay. And we're neither priest nor lay. We're not quite priests, really. And we're not quite lay people either. And he was talking about sort of the practicing community there, because people were really gung-ho. And he liked it that way. He didn't care about the differentiation that much. But he did want to have disciples that he ordained, and he wanted some of them to go to Japan and, try to glean a little of the wisdom from there, and hoped that they could glean a little of the, not wisdom, the spirit anyway, that we had. And he appreciated us, but some of us have let it go to our heads thinking that we had something over them, which isn't true. And people would call us monks, like Dot does. In this, she said when she first arrived or something, the monks were in the zendo chanting. We were entirely lay people, except for Copuccino. He wasn't even there yet. There might have been nothing but lay people unless Suzuki Roshi was there. Katagiri usually wasn't there. He was almost always in the city. Anyway, that's very common. And people, even who were students, will say, I was a monk at Tassajara, when they were just a layperson. And that's all right. It's just, it just makes those words around. All right. So I said there were two ceremonies. That was Dick's installation. And then there was the opening ceremony for Tassajara. They were like 2 different days, I think. And they were right around July 4th. I don't even know if I have an absolute dating of that. We were really bad at keeping records. Oh, doesn't matter. Who cares? Anyway, I met Dot back then. She was Dot Luce, and she was a guest. And she talks about it, how she had come there sort of on retreat, in a difficult time in her life with her marriage. And so she started sitting with us, practicing Zazen with us. And then she came back to practice with us that year more. And she just lived out in Carmel Highlands, which, is still, I don't know, an hour and 45 minutes from there, 2 hours, or depends on how you drive. And so Dot and I continued to know each other for some years there. And then, I don't know, there was a long period of decades I didn't see her. And then she came to a reunion, Tassajara reunion of sorts. Maybe it was the 25-year reunion. And because I remember I was there with Kostriken, and I hadn't seen her in a long time. And then she'd moved up to Arcadia and was with the Zen group up there. And I remember Kostriken and me dropping by and visiting her, surely when we were on our way to see Kostriken's son and his family in Oregon, or before he had a family. He just had a wife at that point. But anyway, so look, that's enough. Let's give Dot a call after we've had our pause to meditate. So when you hear the bell, if you're of such a mind, hit pause and meditate or whatever for as long as you wish. And when you're through with the meditation or whatever, hit unpause. And we'll be there to hit the bell to end the meditation or whatever. And we'll give Dot Kostriken a call. Incidentally, I didn't ask her either where Kostriken comes from. I guess that's her maiden name. Yeah. All right.
Hello.
Hi, Dot.
Hi.
This is great. We're finally reconnected.
I know. I'm just heating up some top ramen.
I haven't had any of that in a while.
Really, the good old days, always being broke and eating top ramen.
That's great. That's great. What are you up to these days? How are you doing?
Well, I think mostly I am not working because of COVID and not being able to finish my licensure renewal. Otherwise, I would have worked, which I guess I'm just habituated to working. But after that, because of COVID, I've been pretty bored. We stayed home a lot for obvious reasons. And not much has been going on. I keep track of, trying to eat well, take care of myself. And Ray lives with me. So the two of us sort of keep each other company and live life pretty uneventfully. It's not very exciting. Most exciting thing we do occasionally is go to the city for medical treatment or for just go down there and get something done.
Yeah.
So that's about it, you know.
Yeah.
And David, a lot of the stuff for me that's entertainment is like Facebook. And with my vision, that's tough. It's hard for me to read even that, enlarging it. But for instance, David does beautiful photography, and I enjoy that, seeing that. He does a lot of outdoor work. And, well, it's primarily outdoor, beautiful, and it sort of takes me out of myself. And I really appreciate that, and I told him that.
Oh, that's really nice. You said
Yeah,
David. Do you mean Ray?
No, I mean David, the guy that talked to me tonight, that hooked me up with you.
Oh, David Silva.
Uh-huh.
Oh, well, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, he's my Facebook buddy, and I appreciate him so much.
Oh, that's neat. Well, well, let's see. You and I met back in do you remember?
Well, 1967. I arrived as a guest the first time. It's a long story about how I got invited to go as a guest.
Tell me.
Okay, it's kind of boring, but I was a student at Monterey JC doing work for my psychology degree. And in the class, the group psychology class, we did group psychology in the class with people. And an elderly woman, to me, she must have been ancient. I think she probably ended up being 50. And I was, very young, mother of three. She said to me, you really should take a break. Have you ever been away from your children? And I said, no. And she said, have you ever been away from your family at all since you've been married? And I said, no. I've never thought of that. And she said, well, I recommend you really should go to visit something. There's this old place in the mountains that was a colony for artists. And I think someone new's moving in. I hear it's Buddhist or whatever, but you might find it very restful and give you a break from your family. Might be a good thing to do. And that was a really shocking thought, to do something for myself, by myself, without my family, my kids or my husband. And that had never occurred to me that I could do it. So I guess I was already into doing yoga seriously and meditating every day with yoga. And I thought, well, maybe I can manage it. I'll figure it out. And I was very, very young and very naive. I rented a car, and I rented an Oldsmobile, which of course had automatic shift and power brakes or whatever. And of course, coming down the hill, they burned out. I swerved to save myself, managed. I got up and out of the car smoking and go into the the place that was greeting you, the little office.
Yeah.
And I forget what her name was behind the counter, but she looked at me, and the first thing that I heard were the monks chanting, the people at Zendo, which was next to the office.
Right.
And I said, what is that? And she said, it's the chanting. And I was just struck dumb. And I put my hand against the wall, and I just stood there for a while. And later she told me, I've forgotten her name, but she was, she's a person who'd been there a long time. She said to me after, I've never had the feeling that you showed me that day, the look on your face. And I said, well, what was the look? And she said, you looked struck dumb. And I said, I was. And it just was, I'd never felt like that. So it was interesting. And I started my stay, and with the guests and the way things were working, I tried very hard to have privacy. And with the guests, it wasn't possible. Guys usually would kind of approach me if I was sitting off in a corner, like trying to be, friendly and saying, why don't you join the rest of us or whatever. And I would say, no, I'm fine, thank you. And I really wanted quiet. And being a guest then, it was not possible to be separate and quiet. And you picked up on that. And you're the one who said to me, would you like to eat in a different place? Could I give you a space, maybe somewhere a little apart? And I said, oh, yes, I would really appreciate that. So you got me a little corner nook away from all the crowds of people. And I came in early after meditating in my room, doing yoga. And I would have my meals alone. And finally you said to me, would you like to meditate with the rest of the students? And I said, can I? That never occurred to me. And you said, yes. So you arranged it somehow that I could go in, and I did meditate. And that's the way I spent I forget how long the vacation was, maybe, I don't think more than 2 weeks, if that. But it changed my life. When I left, I went home, and I got up in the morning before my husband got up and meditated in the bathroom where I could have quiet. And then I continued to meditate on my own. And then the big thing in my heart was to go back as soon as I could. So what happened is I signed on for summer as a student. And I got accepted, and I went that summer and worked as a student. And that's when the kids came to stay with me. I forget how long, because my husband wouldn't take care of them. There was no one else to take care of them. So they came and lived at Tassajara, which was, again, nothing planned on or expected. It just happened. And, of course, for them, it was a summer dream. It was the kind of summers I used to have as a kid at parks, Russian River and whatnot, growing up. And they loved it. They were head over heels as far as they were concerned. I think they would have stayed, except that school was looming, of course, and we had to leave for that. Anyway, it changed my life, especially my relationship with Roshi.
Let's hear about that.
Well, he frightened me because he looked so unapproachable. And so how can I put it? He didn't look as if he would hurt anyone, but he was so removed from my day-to-day life. He was so exotic to me, And then it became, from that, it turned into being so human, slipping the kids some candy from his pocket and laughing with his little secret smile, telling them, shh, like it's a secret between them. And the kindness and the strength. I had not known a male that had that kind of feeling, that aroused a feeling in me. He's not like a grandfather, but he was very paternal, I think, feeling to me. And by paternal, what I mean is I felt safe around him. And with men, I often felt confused, I think, about how they reacted to me, confused me. But with him, there was not that feeling of confusion at all. I felt very clear with him about a relationship. And it was teacher. It was really clear. So when I did Ryokusan with him, it was very funny. It revealed a lot to me about myself and my life at that point. I got in with trembling and fear and thinking of just raking my brain for what brilliant thing I would ask him, so he wouldn't think I was a fool, that he would think I was a serious student. And I went in and sat trembling, in fear of this great man. And he, of course, picked up on everything. I couldn't fool him. And he walked around me, perambulated around me, and he looked at my posture, and he said, posture is very good. And I thought, oh, God, thank God. I'm passing, at least on the posture. And then I guess he said if I had a question. And I had to think really hard, because the question that came up for me was, what do I do about my marriage? Should I get a divorce? And if I get a divorce, what will happen to us? And then I realized when I was thinking that question, that if you have the question, you have the answer. And somehow that is what came to my mind. And I thought, yeah, I have the answer. And so I just said I wanted to know what he would say to me about my practice, what was the best way to pursue it when I went home. And so that was my meeting with him. And from then on, I felt, I had found a teacher. I'd been studying yoga and other things, but the yoga was like a preamble to Zazen, which was really tough on my body, like everyone. And so that changed my life. I changed everything after that. I got a divorce and went through hell. But I had that, and Jean Ross was in Carmel, and I lived, a few minutes away. So I would go sit with Jean. That's where David was, too. David sat there with her.
Oh, right.
And I knew David at Tassajara, too. Excuse me.
David Silva.
Jean was wonderful. Jean was everything. She was a teacher. She, of course, conducted the Zazen, the meetings we had. And one day she had a guest come from Japan. It was a huge man and a teacher. And I had come over for something, I forget what, and walked in on them when he had come to visit her. And they're sitting on the floor with a jug of hooch, laughing and having a wonderful time and being very human. That really, really blew my mind. But it sort of made it much better for me, seeing Jean being human with a famous Japanese teacher who was also being human. It was great for me.
Yeah, that was Tatsugami.
That's right. He looked like the Japanese wrestler.
Yeah, he was the sumo champ of AAG when he was there. He was very strong. And he came to Tassajara as a guest teacher for 3 practice periods.
Yes, he was wonderful.
That's neat.
Yeah, it is. I could tell you stories all night because so much of it played out. After Dick took over, I was clear that I didn't feel comfortable there. And my relationship with Toss was that I would go there rarely and not stay for any period of time anymore. So it's more with Jean that I continued my practice. Mm-hmm. She was wonderful for me. She was kind to the children and just a wonderful person.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, do you want me to ask me a question?
Do you remember Mark Lewis who sat there?
Mark Lewis?
Yeah, he sat with Jean.
At that time, I don't know. What did Mark look like?
He was tall and young. He was a high school student when he started to sit with her. He went to Carmel High. I remember when you first came, and you were with your husband in a house in the Carmel Highlands. Nice place. And your name was Dot Luce, and his family owned, I think, Luce Meats. And I'd see these trucks going around Monterey County, Luce Meats, and I'd think of you. But,
I didn't know that. Yeah.
And
Well, that famous wealthy man, multimillionaire family, never once paid a dime to support his children.
is that right?
Yeah, they were my children. They were my gift to the world.
Well, somehow you managed to live in Carmel.
No, not when I got divorced. No. That house was sold, and we moved. The children and I moved to. Well, we stayed with the Olinskys, Saul Olinsky and his wife,
Where?
in the Highlands.
Oh.
Saul lived near us, and Jean. Saul and Jean Olinsky. And she was sort of the great auntie to the kids. And Saul was a very old friend of my dad's.
Is that
the union
right?
busker.
He was a very, very well-respected community organizer. He was the most famous community organizer in America.
You're not telling me anything new.
Huh.
But Uncle Saul was a kick in the ass. He was wonderful. And he knew that I grew up in a red diaper family.
Uh-huh.
So we were a natural fit. He knew my dad from organizing, and the kids knew him. My son went to college, and they talked in the poli-sci class about this famous Saul Olinsky, and Ray, he suddenly realized how famous Uncle Saul was.
Uh-huh.
Anyway.
Right.
Yes. He was a character. He was unique, really, truly unique person. He was tough, too. Anyway, to go back to where we were living, we ended up in being broke, no support, no nothing. I had no education, no way of earning a living, but it worked out. You know, things always do one way or another.
Well, I wonder where I was visiting you in Carmel. Maybe you were staying with Yolanda.
No, you just work your ass off, and they were.
So, what'd you do when you got a divorce?
No, we ended up after the divorce. What did I do?
Yeah. What'd you do for money?
Thing? Oh, well, I went to. That was the only thing I could do. Lived on welfare, of course, and food stamps.
Uh-huh.
And suffered through it.
Did you work?
And worked at what I could. I had no interest. I was 19.
You were what?
Did I work?
Yeah.
I was married when I was 18, so I didn't have work experience. So I couldn't work. I didn't have a job, but I had food stamps and welfare. Anyway, I put myself through school.
Yeah.
And that's how I got a job.
Oh, wow.
I had a student loan, put myself through school, got a degree,
in
master's in psychology, and got a license. And I've been a licensed psychotherapist for over 50 years.
Oh, my goodness. I forgot about that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, where were you born? Where do you come from?
San Francisco. I'm a red diaper baby. I was born the day of the Great Strike. My mother walked to the hospital to have me because my father couldn't take her. He had his skull broken by a bastion by the police who were breaking up the strike.
What strike?
August 30th, 1934. The 1934 Great Strike in San Francisco.
What were they striking? Who was striking what?
The waterfront. It's the Great Strike of David. You don't know poli-sci.
No.
The political science greatest strike in California and across the United States was in 1934.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you didn't know that, but anyway, that was when I was born. So I was a red diaper baby.
Wow. And Let's see, Harry Bridges was there, right?
Yeah, my father hated him.
Oh,
He
why?
came to
He
our
was the
house.
most famous union organizer.
Yeah, but my father felt he betrayed the San Francisco Union. He was from Australia, and he did a deal at some point where my father and the people who were striking felt he betrayed them. That's all I know. You know, as a little girl listening to history later, that's what I was told.
Yeah. Wow.
But that was what I grew up with, and that was, I guess, we really were a family where we got together for picnics. The people who were part of that, the big movement. We would have kids who knew each other growing up. One of them was a boyfriend of mine later, whose father was the head of the law school, the USF Law School, and they were red diaper baby people. So that was a big movement in the city and a big part of my life politically.
And,
which was long ago.
And how did you end up, you said you were 18, so you were just out of high school or something? Were you in college when you got married? Or
I was in college. I graduated from high school 17, so I was a freshman, I think. No, I was a sophomore.
Where?
When I was 18.
Where?
San Francisco State.
Uh-huh. And where did you meet your husband?
Through a friend at San Francisco State, his best friend, Tom, was our best man. And Tom was best friends with Ray, and Tom's parents loved me dearly and were great promoters of the romance, as a matter of fact.
What do you remember anything else about Tassajara? You remember Lambert, Bill Lambert outside?
Bill Lambert was a relative. He was a cousin from the past of my husband's family.
Really?
And so they used to, yes, my husband's family, his father, my father-in-law, used to go there to Lambert's ranch in the summers for rides on horses and stay there at the horse ranch. But they're related. They're cousins somehow, far, far away.
Wow.
Way in the past.
I remember being at Lambert's with you and Yolanda. And, you know, Yolanda was always dealing hashish and stuff, right? She was from Austria. And she said, and there was an old rancher Bill was talking to, and I think they were drinking something. And Marion, his wife, was at the stove. We're sitting at the big kitchen table. And Yolanda said to Bill, "Bill, do you mind if I smoked some hashish?" Oh, and she was talking to an older guy who was there, who was a little drunk, like an old rancher or something. "Do you mind if I turn your friend on to hashish?" And Bill said, "Go right ahead, yo." And Marion at the stove said, "Bill?" And he said, "Shut up." And she said, "Bill." And then he said, No, you go ahead, yo." And his wife said, "Bill." And then he pulled out a big knife, and he drove it into the table and said, "Okay, I'm making a line." And he pulled a long gash across that wooden table and said, "Everybody wants to smoke hashish on this side of the line. Everybody who doesn't on that." I guess he went over on the other side of Yo to do that. And Marion gave up, you know, and Bill didn't smoke any, but his friend did, and Yo did. And probably I did.
Yeah, I remember. I remember Bill. I loved him dearly. He was always a sweetheart. His heart was in the right place a lot of times. And he sure cut through the bullshit.
Yeah.
But who the hell is Yolanda?
Yolanda Shea.
Oh, the crazy wild woman.
Right.
I remember Yolanda.
Yeah.
Oh, she had her little girl. What was her name?
Ooh.
Oh.
She had several children.
But the little girl, Sissy or something, was around my daughter's age, and they used to play. I would take them to Carmel River to play, and she'd been playing with someone else at Carmel River Beach when I was there with my kids, and she got cut, her foot, on one piece of glass at Carmel River Beach. And her mother was off somewhere, and nobody knew where. And it pissed me off so much. I wanted to kill her. So I took a little, what was her name? God, I can't remember her name.
I can't remember.
No, but it was like Tiffy or some strange name. Anyway, I took her to the emergency room and finally got her bandaged and everything, and then presented her to Yolanda when I finally could run Yolanda down. And she said to me, well, you expect me to thank you, but you're wrong. I think you did the wrong thing. I don't believe in organized hospitals.
Oh, yeah, that's Yo. That's Yo.
Yeah, so.
She lived to be in her 90s, and she lived in Pacific Grove right by Vic and Shayna Selby, if you remember them.
Where were they?
Well, he was a math teacher, and she was from Dallas. And we had friends in common from Dallas and I come from Fort Worth next door. Anyway, they were real nice people, and they come into Tassajara with Yo, and Yo would bring hash cookies for everyone, and I'd say, Yo, we don't smoke pot or eat hash here. We can't. And it was hard for her to imagine. She just thought it was the greatest thing in the world. But I said, no, don't, take those out with you when you leave. But of course, there would be some people, there were very few, who were interested and would find her.
Of course. Yeah, that's just life.
Yeah.
That is so funny, though, because when I think of her, I think of all the other things that were going on there at that time and life and more people. My house in Pacific Grove, I still own. I rent it.
Oh, is that right? My God.
Yeah, it's an old, God, I don't know what year anymore. 1910, 1925. It's a little cottage falling apart, of course, but I still have it. And it's been good for me, except that because I'm, legally blind, I can't drive to go down there anymore, and it's just too hard to get down there. So I have an income from it, which is very helpful.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, that's where I raised my kids.
Yeah.
Poverty Row.
Yeah.
All the hippies lived there, and, they said the smoke wasn't fog in PG, it was smoke from dope.
Right. One thing I remember is, I went out and studied Japanese intensively at the Monterey Institute of Foreign Studies. And I
remember that.
Yeah, I got a little tiny place in Pacific Grove. And you would drive me to the city for Suzuki Roshi lectures on
That's right.
Saturday.
That's right.
And then when I lost that place, Lambert got me a nice little cabin with a friend of his in the Carmel Valley, but sort of on the end that's sort of near Carmel, and you loaned me your station wagon so I could drive to class. And that was really, really helpful.
David, I forgot that, but I'm glad you remember.
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, that was for, a few months. You loaned me your station wagon. I don't know what you did, but I guess you had some other...
Or maybe I just rode in with other people to work. But, you were a special class kind of relation in our family. You're like, I don't know, what, uncle, some kind of figure to the kids, some male figure that was stability. As little as you may have realized you were stable to us, you were.
Wow.
I guess by comparison. And they always remembers you throwing in the candy in the shopping cart. They loved it. And they always look forward to you being around because they knew if you were there, there was going to be fun, fun, fun.
Huh.
Because you're still such a big kid at heart.
Huh.
And yet you were legally a grown-up, so you're the perfect person in their life. They really believed in you. David's coming over. God, we're going to go grocery shopping with David. And I'd always think, why? Why go shopping? Then I'd see the carts full of candy and treats, and I realized David has a hold over these kids.
Huh.
They have never forgotten you. You've always been, how can I put it? I think you were their Roshi of Tassajara at their level.
Well, goodness. Huh. Yeah. I remember that. I remember that. And I just said hello to Ray. And, we talked a little bit about back then, quite a bit back then.
Yeah.
So, that the oldest group picture we have at Tassajara, which was done in the fall of 1967 after the first practice period and after the guest season that summer of 67, the first year we were there, was broken into two, and there was a practice period. Guest season was May, June, and then the practice period was July, August, and then there was a second guest season in September. And after that, like in October, you were around then in that fall. And you say that you're the person on the far right front row in that picture.
Yeah.
Wow. And you're sure of that?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. All right.
I can't see the picture. I don't have the picture in front of me. Wait a minute.
You've
yes,
written
I do.
me
Wait.
that.
I have the picture on my altar. If you hang on, I'm going to go look right now. The altar's in the living room.
Huh.
Let me put the light on. Okay. Let's see where it is. Yep, here it is. Got the same picture. Yeah, if you look at the picture, bottom row, far right, final person on the right with white knee pants. That's
right.
me.
Wow.
With my skinny legs.
Wow. All right.
Yep.
I didn't recognize you in that picture. I found it hard to believe, but you.
Why? Why didn't you recognize me? My hair is pulled back, but other than that.
I didn't. Well, I just didn't. But anyway, for a long time we didn't see each other. You know.
No, that's true.
And then I met you again at a reunion.
That's right.
A reunion. Many years had passed.
And you came up here. You were here in Arcadia with one of your boys.
Yeah.
And you came over to the house, and we went over to the zendo.
Yes.
And I went to the zendo this last Sunday and sat with the priest that they have, the teacher from Santa Cruz, and sat zazen. I haven't done that in a while.
Oh, yeah. I did a podcast with him, a very short one.
Oh, good.
3 years ago. He was the first one. He was one of the first. I talked to Mel Weitzman, Paul Disco, and then him. We did a thing. It was about 15 minutes or 30 minutes. What's his name again? I can find it.
Oh, gosh.
Huh?
Oh God, I can just think of it. Memories without vision, your memory really goes. Maybe
Oh,
it would go
really?
anyway, but I think I know. Yeah,
Well,
that's one of the first things you lose without vision.
oh, wow. Well, I did a podcast with him just about because he did the COVID had just come around, right? And
Yeah.
he did the Immejuku Kanongyo in 20 seconds, which was how long you're supposed to wash your hands. So for the podcast, he washed his hands and did the Immejuku Kanongyo.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked him. And
He has a nice, sweet spirit. And I just, like I said, just saw him this last week. And I go now, not often, I'll go once a month with a friend who can take me because, not being able to see and not driving, it's hard to get anywhere. That's the hardest part in my life that has, I don't know, I haven't dealt with it completely yet. I get lonely socially, but Facebook has been wonderful. David's photographs are incredible. Just what a gift. And so what I can find, I make use of, and certainly sitting zazen helps.
Eugene Bush is his name.
Yes. The bush is what I remember.
So how much
Gene
can you
Bush.
see?
Well, I can see enough to walk around and, not fall down. But what I can't do is I can't read. I can't drive.
Well, wait a minute. You're on Facebook. You write little bits. I mean, I know it's hard, but
yeah, what I do is I enlarge it full blast, and my eyes will manage long enough for me to read maybe 10 minutes. And if I enlarge it hugely, it's very slow pickings, But I do that as often as I can manage it.
Yeah. Well, you remember anything else about Suzuki Roshi here?
I remember he was, I'm trying to think. I remember his incredible kindness. It was just all-encompassing. And I loved, his wife.
Mitsu.
When I was in the kitchen. Yes.
We all called her
When
Oka-san.
I was in the kitchen. Oka-san, yeah, I remember. But when I was in the kitchen working, which is where I found myself as a student, before she was arriving, there's a lot of excitement about her coming. And, of course, we didn't know what exactly she would be doing, where, what, whatever. But when she came, she landed right in the kitchen. I had been going crazy because I was in so much pain psychically and emotionally. All I wanted was silence around me so I could try to focus on meditation. And there would be these girls in the kitchen quack, 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 talking, and I wanted to choke them, and I knew that was not very Buddhist of me. So when she came into the kitchen, she wasn't in the kitchen 4 minutes before she said, "And we have quiet." Ha ha! I thought, "Thank you. You are my angel. I will love you forever." And she immediately didn't waste 1 minute. But the thing is that no one resented it. You know why? Because everything she said to do was right. And we all knew it. She was not unfair. She was not mean. She was clear. And we knew it. She had the authority. And I loved her and I respected her. She was wonderful.
Oh, that's really good to hear.
Yeah.
You remember anybody else from back there in particular?
Well, Yvonne Rand. Yvonne was important to me in a lot of ways. Of course, Jean Ross. Jean Ross was a God, how can I put it? A spiritual mother to me. She was so good to the kids and so good to me. She was always there for me. Just incredibly kind. When she was leaving, when she was moving away, she gave me a lot of things of hers that were sort of Buddhist, like in her mind. There were these things from Japan, beautifully, and I still have them. Some vases and some books. Journey into Silence was her beginning introduction to Buddhism. And she was just, her relationship with my kids was such kindness. They never had that from their grandmother, their paternal grandmother. She was my Roshi. And I told her that once. I said, Jean, you're my teacher, you're my Roshi. And she laughed. She said, no, I'm not. I said, yes, you are. And she said, I am not a Roshi. And I said, you are in my eyes. And I said, I don't care what you say. I know you are my Roshi. And she just smiled. She was incredibly deep, much deeper than people gave her credit for, I think.
Well, Suzuki certainly gave her credit. She was the maybe the third or fourth Shuso, head monk at Tassajara, and we went a whole practice period without a Shuso because she couldn't come till the next one, and he did that to I think to pressure her into coming, and she. Anyway, I think when she was Shuso, she was still driven out to do her Monday night sitting in Carmel.
That sounds like Jean.
Yeah.
You know who was there was David, too.
David Silva.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Romy. Romy was there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Who else?
Yeah.
You remember her?
Oh, vaguely. It's a long time ago.
She died of breast cancer, unfortunately.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was sad. Very sad.
Yeah.
I had lunch with her when she cooked me this special thing when I was down visiting. And I met her husband and whatnot. And then not long after, I got a call from her, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was a bad diagnosis, so it was pretty quick. Between the time I saw her and the time she died, it was just short time. So I was really sorry about it. But I haven't kept up with the other members, that I would know who's alive and who's dead. But I guess I could keep up better. David, do you remember the time when you were first publishing something, transcripts, I think, of the tape recordings that I donated money?
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, thank you very much.
No, I remember that was a long time ago. My God, how long ago?
I wasn't publishing. I was preserving.
Yes.
We were getting the lectures
recorded.
transcribed and, digitized and different things that, at first, it evolved through the years. I started doing that.
I still have the tape.
Yeah, I started doing that in the mid-'90s. And
that's what I wondered.
Yeah,
I wondered what it was.
The first fundraising, I've sent out very few through the years, very little fundraising. And actually, I get by now on donations. The first one went out around, 2000 or around 1999 or something. But I also raised money for Zen Center, so because to do the high quality reel to reel tape
Oh,
master
yeah.
files. I raised a lot of money to get that going.
Well, I still have tapes. I still have the old tapes.
Oh, well, I would like to know what tapes you have.
Well, the earliest that you did, I believe, I will have Ray look at them when I find them. I'll have to search
Well,
for
I
them.
didn't
But I
distribute
still got them.
tapes, so whatever you've got, I'd be very interested in seeing. Do you think maybe Ray could? How many tapes do you have?
I have no idea. I have to look. But I did have tapes. And I kept them because you and whoever it was, another guy, were working on that originally to just note it, getting them down from lectures.
So you got some copies. We probably have all that, but I'd like to see to make sure.
Sure.
If
I can find them, I'll figure out a way to get them to you. I'll get in touch on Facebook.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have a P.O. box. You don't have to send them. All I'd need to know is what the information says. It'll say the name of it or something. But
sure.
But it's possible. Every once in a while, when I talk to somebody like this, we find something new that was lost. So.
Oh, yeah. Sure. That's the fun of a treasure hunt.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's neat.
Yeah.
Well.
And how is your weather there? What's it like?
Oh, it rained all night. We're sort of getting toward the end of the rainy season. And it's, people think it's hot here. It really doesn't get that hot. But we live near the ocean, and there's like breezes, but it's usually in the 80s.
Wow. Well, you're a Texan.
Yeah, well, it gets hotter. It got hotter in Texas.
I don't know much about the South because I've never traveled much in the States. I traveled more around the world, usually being disgusted with our government and trying to get away. But I'm not familiar with a lot of the country. I kind of regret that. I wish I had traveled throughout the United States, but I don't think I would have lasted long traveling through the South. There's so much about it that disgusts me.
Oh,
makes me uncomfortable.
Well, the South has changed more than other parts of the country.
For the good?
Yeah. Yeah. The situation for black people living in the South is much, much better now than it was when I was young. I had some involvement with the civil rights work going on in '64, and then I knew the guys that got killed there, and I went back and visited the family of James Chaney, a black young guy, really wonderful guy who got murdered up in Philadelphia, Mississippi. And I went and visited his family in Laurel, Mississippi, sort of in central Mississippi. And his father, I just thought I was going to go say hello to his father and mother, but his father got all the local black leaders and businessmen together, and they all said it's totally different now, and racism is not our biggest problem. Our biggest problem is drugs. And I mean, we
Wow.
agreed. If I'd have gone to that home and had a meeting like that in '64, and people had found out, they would have burned the house down.
Oh, God.
And it was the meeting was arranged by a guy named Chick Reeder. Well, actually, by his house cleaner, his housekeeper. Chick Reeder was an early Suzuki Roshi student, and he also studied with Dao Lun, the Chinese founder of the City of 10,000 Buddhas, who actually even went to Laurel and visited Chick, and Chick picked him up. Chick got a call just out of the blue. It said, "There's a Chinese man in robes here that wants to see you." So Chick went and picked him up and fed him, and they sat Zazen all night together, and Chick took him back to the train station, and he went on the next day. I don't know where he was going. But yeah, Chick was amazing. Chick's family started Laurel, Mississippi. He's very well to do. And I've stayed with him.
That's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful story. My daughter's kids, the adopted kids, went to the school of 10,000 Buddhas, which is, south of here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's Ukiah.
Yeah, right. They live in Willits, which is not far away, and he's a county supervisor. So he does the right thing. He's, lefty, and she teaches. They're both teachers, and they adopted kids and put them in that school for the 10,000 Buddhas. The problem was that the people who attended 10,000 Buddhas primarily were Hong Kong Buddhists with lots of money and very, very Western, and the goal being to make more money. The Buddha they wanted was the gold Buddha. So my kids, being socialists, of course, drew the kids out. Their kids took them out. They couldn't take the kids going to school with other kids from Hong Kong wearing, $5,000 Picard watches or whatever. So that's another side of, I guess, Hong Kong Buddhism.
Oh, yeah. Well, there are a lot of very serious practitioners there. I mean, they have all sorts of things going on, and they have people who don't lie down, very serious monks, and they have a whole gamut of practices that are possible there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I went and did zazen there, and I was happy with it. I mean, there were enough serious practitioners. We walked in,
Yeah.
They were serious. It was good.
I remember visiting with them in the city, and they were fixing up a big lunch of pancakes, and because they didn't eat after noon. Now, I don't know if that continued, but that's a Theravadan practice. That's original Buddhist thing for monks, but they followed that.
The Theravada?
Well, no, they followed the practice of not eating until afternoon.
Oh, yeah, right. And then eating once, and that was enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, pancakes wouldn't be a very good choice, I don't think.
No, high carb.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
How is your lady love? I like her very much.
Kostriken, yeah, we visited you up there too. She's doing great, and maybe she could drop by and say hello. She sees her son in Bend in Oregon, and then sometimes then she's got to get back to the San Francisco area to see some other people, and she does that every year. And then her son will drive her, so they go right by your place.
Well, if she was in for stopping, that would be fun to talk to her.
Yeah.
I follow her on Facebook, and I love when she posts something on my, thing. It's nice to hear from her.
Yeah.
She's always upbeat, and she's, I enjoy the way she portrays your life. It's sort of one more view of it, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, she's great. She's she's in a couple of social groups there that, do things to help poor villages and stuff.
And good causes. Yeah, good
Yeah.
for her.
Yeah. She's got an excellent disposition, very nice to live with, I'll say.
Anybody who could survive you, I'm sure, is a good woman.
That's true. I get so involved in my work. It's hard. It's hard. It's like being married to an artist, or really more like being married to a gambler.
Yeah.
And I get so involved in my work that or whatever I'm doing that. Anyway, she's busy. The women I've been with have been very strong and had their own lives, so it actually worked out.
Diane. I remember Diane, my little Diane.
Yeah, she's Dia. She's been Dia for about, I don't know, 30 years, 40 years.
Yeah, well, it's a good Jewish name. But I remember when we talked about our travels around the world hitching, and we shared some stories, and I got warned off by her from places to avoid, which was very lucky for me because I was foolish and didn't know the difference of where I could go or not go. And so there was a part of the world I didn't go to from good advice from Dia. Anyway, we were girlfriends at Tassajara at the time, and we had a lot in common. I think we both were individual women who weren't wanting to be like everyone else. And
that's definitely true.
Yeah.
She's got a little group up in Spokane now, and just got lay entrustment last year from Tia Strozer.
How wonderful!
Yeah, and
excellent.
She was just she played softball, and she was just in a softball tournament somewhere like Arizona or something. I don't know where she went.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, it
and
is.
She's in Spokane or Seattle?
So Spokane.
Yeah. Oh, great. That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
What time is it there?
Right now it is 12:12.
Is it 12 noon or midnight?
No, it's noon.
Oh, good.
Noon tomorrow.
I'll let you go.
We're here tomorrow, and I can report that it's a good day, so you can look forward to it.
I will. You're ahead.
Yeah.
That's good. You're prescient. You can predict the future.
Yeah, right.
Okay, David.
Right.
It's been great to talk to you.
Yeah, it's been really good. And
let's
stay in touch.
Yes, I'm going to go online and look for you in your old, again, what is it, the address?
CUKE.com.
CKU.
No, CUKE.com.
Cuke.
Like cucumber.
Yeah, and dot GOVE?
No, com. Cuke.com.
Oh, com. Okay, COM.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can email me from it on the bottom of the home page. There's links to everything. And
okay.
And it's been a pleasure. I'm really happy we got to talk.
I'm glad we did.
Yeah.
And I wish you well, and hi to Katrinka and your boys.
Yeah. And tell Ray thanks for letting us use his phone.
Oh, I will.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye. So thanks a lot, Dorothy Kostriken. That was really good. I really enjoyed it. But she and I had a really hard time connecting because, like she says, she's legally blind. And I would try to connect to her on Facebook, and we get a message. We have one back and forth, and then I'd lose her. And really, it took a couple of years to connect. And the way it was, David Silva helped us. Actually, was I don't know, for some reason, it was a horrible connection on her phone. And I couldn't call her phone number. It didn't work. It would just hang up right away. I don't know what it was, the way she had it set not to accept certain numbers. So somehow we connected, maybe by emailing and me calling her son's cell phone. That's what it was. And that's how we talked. And let me tell you, that was years in the making. Anyway, thanks a lot, Dot. Really enjoyed it. And until we meet again, this is DC, Puba of Kook Archives and Kook Audio, coming to you from sleepy Sanur with Dogget Bandita and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.